Okay, so let's put this in really simple terms. It's like imagine you have a white person and a black person. We're just going to use this dichotic sense because for starters, let's just alleviate the dichotomy of like black people, that it's only about black people and white people. It's literally been about white people and everyone else. It's just the fact that when you have other minorities that are also not English speaking, and you have the one that's actually been trying to speak up on a televised level and it's still not getting anywhere, I probably wouldn't speak up either. But that's aside from the point. But imagine you have two people, and one person is literally constantly punching the other person in the face, and constantly keeping them down, and constantly being like, you're not anything, and you don't belong here, and I don't like your kind, and I hate the fact that you're here, and I hate the fact that you air your breathe. As a matter of fact, why don't you just go stand over there? And they're constantly punching this person in the face. Well, regardless of what kind of person that was, or what color you look like, eventually you'd get upset. Eventually you get really mad, and actually, and even still, that madness or that rage that would come about that would be racially charged in some shape, form, or fashion, especially if the person that is doing all of this attacking looks like a certain thing. So they're constantly punching you in the face and constantly keeping you down, and eventually you get upset and you decide to retaliate in somewhat of a racially charged notion. But the moment that you do, the other person that's standing on the side is like, see, that's being racist, and see, is that truly racism, or is that retaliation? Now, let's put this into further context. So you have all of these people in positions of authority that are politicians, that are mayors, that are city councilmen, and everything, that all carry this notion of racial superiority into their positions of authority. So when you have these people that all of a sudden decide to retaliate whenever they've truly been beaten down and are tired of their situation, you have all of a sudden, they're being attacked by the police. They're being attacked by the courthouse. They're being attacked by the school system. They're being attacked by the state government and the federal government. They're being attacked by legislation. And that's what we're getting at as far as the institutionalized portion of racism. And is why people specifically carry the notion that black people or other races can't be racist as opposed to white people. And that's very specifically where we're getting at, is that I can choose to retaliate against a white person and have those carry the same racial feelings. But as soon as I would, that crime would all of a sudden turn into incarceration. It would turn into me being put through the system and me being placed into a situation where all of my feelings, all of my rage and retaliation will be completely invalidated by legislation. Be completely invalidated by the court system. All of a sudden, I'm being as somebody who's being like a revolutionary, or somebody who's being like who's retaliating, somebody who feels like a rebel. All of a sudden, they're being called criminals. And terminology and nomenclature is really important in this case. It's like all of a sudden, these people that are upset, that are rioting about their conditions, are now being called criminals. This is the point of institutionalized racism. This is the point that makes this so important, because this is specifically the reason why people say that black people can't be racist. It's because there has yet to be a point in our history where the whole system has been turned on its head, where all of a sudden black people are sitting in the positions of authority that are stripping away the rights of white people as they go along. Now, this is not the finite definition of racism. No, it's not. There still can be retaliatory feelings that are racially charged that still constitutes racism. The difference being is that there is no threat of legislation from the institution. There is no threat of policing from that standpoint. Like, if black people were to, all of a sudden were to obtain positions of authority and positions of true authority and political positions, and all of a sudden we're starting to take over the court system and starting to take over the police force, and then starting to use this authority to strip away the rights of everyone else, then you would see the same sort of racist state that you would see coming from what we've seen from the last 250 years. That's what we're getting at. It's not necessarily to say none of this is to say that only white people are racist. It's not to say that at all. It is actually just to identify specifically why people choose to say something like that. It's because of the institution. And a lot of people are not willing to actually admit that that's the case. because we've already gone to the point where we have substituted legislation with morality. Like, we've already seen that because this is law, then it has to be correct. And that's the kind of level that we put on that's the kind of level of trust that we place in these institutions. Well, a lot of people that are still in these positions of powers were the same people that actually voted for segregation, that voted against integration in every type of facet. Like, the people that were still making decisions in 1950 are still pretty much alive and still sitting in city council and still sitting as mayors and still sitting as governors. Like, all these people are still around, you know? And as long as the system stays exactly how it is, then there really will be no turning point. Like, the institutionalized definition, or the institutionalized portion of racism, is the mechanism that ensures that it stays exactly the same.